Anyway, this is the part where my girlfriend smells disgusting, unwashed, musty Harfoot taint. Which leads us to the next subject. Okay, so I must admit the Harfoot storyline has been my least favorite part of this show. Way back in the second video I said,
so this section has the potential to be more Tolkien, mostly in that we're shown the use of, and promised future use of, this kind of elemental magic.
And I meant that. This is the one part of the series that should have inspired awe and wonder. We have what's essentially the birth of a wizard, and Amazon is desperate to do a Gandalf, Bilbo/Frodo origin type story. This was the section of the show with the most potential. So why did it turn out so bland and tedious? Well, let's just jump right in and find out. In preparation for this vid, I removed every Harfoot section of this series and marathoned my way through them. All told, the Harfoot storyline runs 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 57 seconds. So it was a relatively quick watch that felt more like 20 hours. This little Harfoot binge left me with one question. What the hell did I just watch? Since Amazon has decided to pay tribute to Peter Jackson's work by shamelessly cherry-picking his dialogue and visuals, I'd like to do a quick comparison. Let's look at this old guy. So what do I know about this character? Well, I'd have to say that this old fart is actually a kindly gent who still retains his love of life and its simple charms, but who's henpecked by an uppity wife. A traditionalist who believes that every hobbit has his place and disapproves when one steps out of line. Now let's take a look at Nori's old pa, Billy Buck. What do we know about Billy Buck? He believes in the importance of family, to the point that he remarries after his first wife's death, which we get to learn about in this excruciating scene. He's serious, yet a bit of a flake. He's brave when he needs to be, and has strength in his convictions. Oh yeah, and
our hearts, even bigger than our feet.
Pardon me while I vomit. What else? He talks a lot, and he literally wears a dress. See?
Ha! Gay!
That's not bad. We get a decent amount of information about both characters. But here's the problem. This old guy's scenes, shown in full context, beginning with Frodo's line here,
"You've been officially labeled a disturber of the peace,"
run 1 minute and 1 second. However, if you take these two scenes and remove all context, his total screen time runs 23 seconds. And this is just what I did with Billy Buck, only using scenes where you either hear or see him. His total screen time adds up to 11 minutes and 18 seconds. So why, after only a minute, do I feel like I know this guy better than this guy? And this guy is essentially an extra who speaks no lines of dialogue. Who cares? Let's get into this. So the Harfoots arrive to save their friend, but the three witches have laid a trap. So we're initially introduced to this group as a close-knit nomadic tribe. They look out for each other, and nobody goes off trail, and nobody goes out without shoes or whatever. Who cares? Look, we're led to believe that this is a tribe as close as family. And in this scene, we're given one of the most important and frightening pieces of information about the Harfoots in the entire season. And this really does explain a lot.
Harfoot folk haven't seen him since the days our ancestors lived in parts unknown over 1,000 years ago.
They've been a nomadic tribe for over 1,000 years. And that's a damn long time. Now, this doesn't look like a very large group, and as far as I can tell, there's been no mention, even in passing, of coming across or meeting up with another Harfoot tribe. I said this was frightening because, from the information provided, it would seem that this tribe has been practicing endogamy for over 1,000 years, and by this point, the bloodlines would be so intermixed that there'd be more deformed and retarded incest babies than not.
Woohoo!
At one point, Sadik Wong over here reads from the Book of the Lost or whatever, in a ceremony to honor a long list of dead Harfoots. But listen to this. During their migration period, if you fall behind, the main group, that is the majority, just leaves you to fend for yourself. When you really stop and think about it, you start to realize that these Harfoots are no better than a bunch of savages. This is a cruel tribe.
Our laws are clear. Any Harfoot that breaks them is to be decaravaned.
A tribe who conspires to kill their own.
Take their wheels and leave them.
And simply showing Captain Hatred here reacting in shock doesn't erase this fact. And neither does this. If forced to guess, I'd say old Sadik Asian hate Burroughs here is most likely the odd man out, a racist who suffers with a crisis of compassion. And Malva's murderous impulses wouldn't exist as a solitary phenomenon. If only one person in this tribe carried these malicious opinions, as well as the intent to act on them, they'd keep it to themselves for fear of being ostracized and, most likely, left behind during the next migration. The fact that Malva clearly holds this opinion,
Take their wheels and leave them.
can only mean that others feel this way as well. She has backing. There's no other reason to say this to the tribal bigot than that she has no fear of reprisal.
Take their wheels and leave them.
Then, when you really stop and think about it, you start to realize that actual living human beings wrote this puke. They wrote these Harfoots as sympathetic characters that the audience is supposed to like and identify with. We're supposed to feel solemn when Sadik has to pause before reading. We're supposed to feel concerned when the carts of food are burned. Then, when you really stop and think about it, you start to realize that this is a generation of girls and males who were raised on social media. What might be the best punishment for going against the opinion of the majority?
Decaravan.
What's the ultimate form of canceling someone?
Take their wheels and leave them.
I could go on, but why bother? I'm not here to rant about friggin' fidgets. Anyway, so the Harfoots arrive to find... You know what bothers me? The entire rescue party is 3 chicks and an old racist. Seriously? Not one other Harfoot male was willing to step up to try to rescue the guy who slapped a whamma jamma on this tree and fed all their fat asses? I think my main issue with the Harfoots is that there's no depth here. No feeling of realism. Why isn't there a horny young Harfoot male running around looking for a mate?
Woohoo!
Why wouldn't there be a young guy constantly handing gifts to Nori to show his romantic intent? Nori is adorable, and despite her off-putting childlike behavior...
We winter in Old Forest. Midsummer we make for Northfield Blem.
Are you trying to tell me that there's not one healthy male in this tribe? Not one straight healthy male in this tribe who'd be willing to stuff this bitch like a Thanksgiving turkey and squirt her all up full of babbies? Apparently there are no actual men in this tribe apart from Sadik. Look at this. Billy Buck's wife died and he hooks up with this brown-toothed bitch. Now this guy who already lost one wife just stands aside to let not only his new wife run off into the wild, but also his mentally challenged daughter and another Harfoot girl.
You girls aren't going anywhere.
Not without me.
You sure about this, Goldie?
Who'll all be heading straight for a trio of giant women who are capable of this. And when there's a perceived danger to the family, look who stands up front to act as a shield. Turns out I was wrong this whole time. This show has no investment in playing weird ideological games. Anyway, so the Fidgets arrive to save Graham Chapman. These witches are powerful and deadly, but now we're supposed to see these Harfoots as caring and empathetic. And need I remind you that this entire tribe killed the Brandyfoot family?
Death by anal!
No! They committed an act of murder by abandonment when they walked away from the cart that was falling behind. Not one Harfoot even tried to help. They just kept pushing forward. Of course, Bertha's there because she's desperate to get down Nori's panties. And speaking of Bertha...
I can't leave him like this or the wolves will get him. So that's not who we are.
That's not who you are.
I can't carry him alone. Are you gonna help me or not? Not. Poppy! If you want to help him find those stars, our best hope is in that book.
I don't want to help him.
Even this shy, awkward girl holds to these murderous beliefs. The simple truth is that this family was left to die. But what if all went well? What if, by some miracle, they managed to catch up to the main group, say, a week or 2 later? As I've said,
Over 1,000 years ago.
1,000 years is a long time. And seeing that this is no way near a massive tribe of hundreds, by this point everyone would be related. These people are your blood kin. How would you ever be able to look another of your tribe in the eye without being reminded that your cousins, uncles, brothers, and sisters all left you to die on the road, abandoning you for fear that if they did try to help, the majority might decide to pick them out of the crowd to leave behind during the next migration?
Take their wheels and leave them.
One more time, Malva. The fact that she not only says this out loud, but prefaces the statement with,
What you ought to have done at the camp.
means that not only have they done this before, but they've done it so many times that it's now common practice to leave men, women, and even small children behind to die what must be to them lonely, miserable, terrifying deaths. How could any community ever hope to exist in this way? In the demon-haunted world, Carl Sagan talks about going through old records from the time of the Salem witch trials, and finding chilling documentation of neighbor turning on neighbor, of old grudges being settled with accusations of witchcraft and devil worship. Accusations that never led to innocence. How would this be any different? How could there ever exist a sense of community, of brotherhood or fellowship with this arbitrary death sentence hanging over everyone's head?
Decaravan.
In the hearts and minds of their own tribe, the Brandyfoot family was dead. And they might have been, if not for Graham Chapman. Alright, anyway. So here come the Harfoots to the rescue. And why, exactly, does Graham Chapman need rescuing? Because when he was doing exactly as he was asked to do by the tribal racist, a tree branch fell and almost hurt a kid. One branch, one tree, and the kid was unhurt.
Yeah, but every time he uses magic, something bad happens.
And do you think the rest of the tribe know this? Do you think they're privy to this information? Because based on this,
Maybe he could fix it.
What you waiting for?
He's done so much for us. It's my rude of us to ask more of him.
I'd have to say no. Nori and Bertha were very obviously withholding the truth. And Nori wouldn't tell because would she really want to get her family into more trouble?
Decaravan.
She very nearly got them all killed.
Decaravan.
And Bertha sure as hell won't squeal. She's lost her entire family. Is she really just going to volunteer to the consequences of lying to the majority?
Decaravan.
As of this moment, they've both lied. Bertha lied here,
He's done so much for us.
and Nori lied with her silence. Nori lied here,
No one. Just me. He's my friend.
and Bertha lied with her silence. So where does that leave us? The entire tribe, Nori included, decided to kick a helpful human out of their little murder club for the crime of this dumb bitch, and this worthless jackass, being unable to keep their shitty little family member out of harm's way. I'm sorry, but did Graham Chapman invite the kid forward, or did this family, the entire tribe, just watch this turd walk into danger and do nothing? This is an excellent example of blame culture. We, the audience, understand the negative consequences of Graham Chapman's magic use. But do they know? I bet they don't. So what does that say about the Harfoots? Alright, anyway. So the Harfoots come. Oh, and remember these accusing faces? These fidgets just allow this shitty little kid to walk into danger, they do nothing, then they blame this guy when something goes wrong.
Yeah, but how were they supposed to know that it was potentially dangerous?
Well, if they were unaware of any risk of danger, why are they so far back?
Maybe it gave them a better view.
A better view. But why am I arguing with myself over this?
What's that supposed to mean?
It's supposed to mean that you're not even a real person.
Well, then who am I?
I'm you.
You got mental problems.
Shut up. Look, a group of people, especially close-knit people, form a subconscious mindset. Much like mob mentality, cues are taken and followed on a subconscious level. If there was no potential for danger, why aren't they just loosely bunched around Graham Chapman in the tree? And why would they allow a small child to walk into an area that they are so obviously avoiding? Jesus, if I were Graham Chapman, I'd still be running in the other direction. Okay, anyway. So these Harfoot assholes come to rescue the friend that they needlessly exiled from their... Oh, that's another thing. Don't forget this. Graham Chapman saves 3 Harfoots from execution by wolf, and Malva the murderer, who apparently everybody listens to, turns the entire tribe's regard to Graham Chapman's favor. They now see a useful person. Chasing off 3 wolves with magic powers? Damn! But no. One tree branch and it's...
Hit the road, shitload.
And need I remind you, not only did Graham Chapman save Nori's life at the last second, but her entire family, this family, with their accusing stares, are all alive because of him. Oh, how soon we forget. What kind of creatures are these? And how could these sociopathic writers ever think they'd be taken favorably? Anyway. Oh, and I wasn't kidding when I said the nomad smelled musty Harfoot taint. Look at how filthy these things are. You almost can't blame them for their cruelty when you take into account the lifelong yeast infections they all must suffer with. Can you imagine how bad they smell? Ugh, like horse vomit, cat shit, and diarrhea all whipped together. Ugh. My real problem with the Harfoot section is this. I want to like this story. I want to love this story. This is the most important part of this show. Fuck all the dwarves and elves and volcanoes and ships filled with Numenorians and orcs and uruks and homos. This is the fantasy story. A hobbit meets a wizard, befriends him, and sets off on a magical adventure. This story almost perfectly follows the monomyth. And don't be surprised when somewhere down the road another character says of Nori,
even the smallest person can change the course of the future.
Because what Amazon has done is to devise their series as a clip show of Peter Jackson's work. And I must admit, the best part about this show is it drove me to make videos. And while putting these videos together, I'm reminded again and again of the importance of Peter Jackson's films. The reason so many of my videos are either uploaded last second or late is partly because while finding Lord of the Rings clips, I get sucked in and spend hours just watching a greatest hits of clips from some of my favorite movies. And this is what's so depressing about this show. They made Joseph Campbell boring. The hero's journey is laid out for anyone to try their hand at, and the Amazon writers couldn't even get that right. Anyway, now that I'm thoroughly depressed, let's move on. So the Harfoots arrive to help Graham Chapman, and they spring the witch's trap.